She looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'm pregnant, and it's yours." We hadn't touched in months. I didn't argue. I just handed her the vasectomy records I'd kept quiet for 2 years. Her story changed before she could blink. I'm 34, sitting alone with a glass of whiskey in hand, still trying to process everything that happened just yesterday. I never imagined finding myself in this kind of situation, but here we are. My ex-girlfriend, Veronica, she's 31, was someone I dated for 3 years. We broke up around 4 months ago. It wasn't messy, no yelling or cheating, just a slow, mutual drift. She wanted to get married and start a family immediately. I wasn't on that timeline and we both knew it. So we agreed to part ways. She moved out of my place, we divided everything fairly, and even blocked each other on social media to make a clean break. It felt like the most mature breakup I'd ever had. Then yesterday morning, completely out of the blue, she shows up at my workplace. I was just heading out for lunch when I saw her standing in the lobby. I'll admit, she looked good. Hair done up, makeup perfect, wearing a dress that screamed, "I planned this." She said, "Derek, we need to talk. It's important." I suggested the coffee shop across the street, neutral ground, public, safe. We sat down. I ordered my usual, she got herbal tea. That was the first red flag. Veronica was a triple-shot espresso kind of woman, always had been. She took a breath, reached for my hand. I pulled mine back, and then she dropped the bomb. "I'm pregnant, 12 weeks. And yes, before you ask, it's definitely yours." My entire brain just froze. I immediately started doing the math. 12 weeks? That would have meant conception happened either right before or right after the breakup. But we hadn't slept together for at least 2 weeks before the breakup. I was away on a business trip. "That's not possible," I said, keeping my voice calm. She jumped straight into this monologue about how she tracked her cycle, how the timing lined up, how she hadn't been with anyone else since because she was too heartbroken. She even pulled out an ultrasound photo like it was Exhibit A. "Derek, I know this is a shock, but we're having a baby. We need to figure this out. Maybe even try again, for the baby's sake." I laughed, not in a cruel way, just in sheer disbelief at the audacity. "Veronica, that's literally impossible." She narrowed her eyes. "Why do you keep saying that? Are you calling me a liar?" I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "No, I'm calling you pregnant with someone else's baby." That's when she went red and raised her voice, accusing me of running from responsibility and refusing to man up. The atmosphere in the coffee shop turned tense. People were starting to look over. So, I calmly pulled out my phone, opened my medical records app, and scrolled to a file I never thought I'd need in this kind of conversation. I turned the screen to face her. It was my vasectomy report from 2 years ago, plus a follow-up test confirming a 0 sperm count. The silence that followed was deafening. Veronica's face drained of color in seconds. She snatched my phone, staring at the screen like it might somehow change if she looked long enough. "You never told me," she finally whispered. "It never came up," I replied. "You were on birth control. Said you didn't want kids until after marriage. I figured I'd mention it when it mattered. But, I'm pregnant," she stammered. "Congrats. But it's not mine," I said. She fumbled to recover, muttering something about how vasectomies aren't always 100% effective, that maybe I should get tested again. I calmly pulled up another document. My annual checkup results from just 3 months ago. Still sterile. "You need to leave," I told her, standing up. "Derek, please. I can explain." "There's nothing to explain. Good luck," I said, leaving her at the table with her untouched herbal tea. I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I was so wrong. Turns out the universe had other plans for me. That same evening, I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. "Is this Derek?" the voice asked. "Who's this?" I said. "This is Patricia, Veronica's mother." And so it began. She launched into a tirade about how I'd humiliated her daughter and was abandoning my responsibilities. I calmly explained the situation, including my vasectomy and follow-up medical confirmations. "Vasectomies can reverse themselves," she argued. You need to take a paternity test. I'm sterile, Patricia, I said. The baby isn't mine. You're just trying to dodge this. My daughter's not the kind of girl who sleeps around. I never said she was. I'm just stating facts. Then came the guilt trip. If you ever loved her, you'd step up regardless. That's not how this works, I replied. A real man would take responsibility. A real man wouldn't claim a child that isn't his, I said, and hung up, blocked her number. 20 minutes later, Veronica's sister Melanie started blowing up my social media. Apparently, I'd forgotten to block her. Her messages ranged from "you're trash" to "Veronica is devastated" to "the least you can do is help financially for a child that isn't mine." The entitlement was truly next level. But things escalated fast. The next morning, Veronica texted me from a new number. I know you're angry, but can we please talk? I made a mistake. A mistake? That's what we're calling it now? I didn't respond, but she kept texting. It was just one time. I was lonely. You were always working. It didn't mean anything. Then, I want this baby to have a father. You'd be a great dad. Please don't punish an innocent child. That last line made me want to throw my phone. Punish? The level of manipulation was mind-blowing. Then came a voicemail from her father, Richard. A man I'd barely spoken 10 words to in 3 years. Derek, Dick here. Man to man, you need to do the right thing. Veronica made a mistake, sure. But walking away makes you just as bad. She picked you to raise this baby with. That has to mean something. Don't be a coward. I was being called a coward for not raising another man's child? But yesterday was where it hit peak insanity. Veronica showed up at my apartment with her best friend, Nadia. Clearly a planned intervention. Derek, we need to have an adult conversation, Veronica began. There's nothing to talk about. You're pregnant, and I'm not the father. But I want to raise it with you, she said. Nadia chimed in. She chose you. That means something. She also chose to sleep with someone else, I replied. Veronica's eyes welled up. It was just one mistake. I don't even remember his name. You don't remember his name? It was at Melody's bachelorette party. That was 5 months ago. A month before we broke up. Meaning she cheated while we were still living together. The crocodile tears stopped. We were basically over. We were literally living together, I reminded her. Nadia, always helpful, added, you were emotionally distant. I was away at a work conference for 4 days. They kept pushing. How I'd be denying the baby a father. How I was being selfish. How this would ruin Veronica's reputation. That's when I hit them with the final blow. You should probably figure out who the actual father is. He deserves to know. He has legal obligations. Veronica's face turned white. I can't. Why not? Silence. Then Nadia, barely whispering, said, he's married. There it was. The real reason for this circus. She couldn't go after him, so I was the backup plan. The safe bet. The guy who might go along with it. You both need to leave. Now. They did. But not before Nadia called me heartless and Veronica cried that I was ruining her life. Well, not anymore. I'm done playing nice. Time to protect myself. After everything that had gone down, I knew I had to cover myself legally. I followed the advice from a few people online and scheduled a consultation with a lawyer, Mr. Brennan. He was calm, professional, and reassuring. Legally, I was in the clear. With documented proof of my vasectomy and the follow-up confirming sterility, there was no way they could force paternity on me. But Brennan still advised me to document everything, just in case the circus kept spinning, and thank God I listened. Because 3 days later, I found a formal-looking envelope stuffed into my mailbox. Not served legally, just dropped in like some passive-aggressive prank. It was from a budget legal advisory service, definitely not a real law firm, demanding I take a paternity test and stop defaming Veronica's character. Apparently, saying I was sterile and couldn't be the father was now slander. I forwarded the whole thing to Brennan. He literally laughed and immediately drafted a cease and desist letter. In it, He outlined my confirmed medical status, included a timeline showing Veronica had admitted infidelity, and issued a formal warning that any continued harassment would result in legal action for emotional distress. We sent the letter to Veronica, Patricia, Melanie, anyone who'd reached out to harass me. And then the real meltdown began. First, Patricia tracked down my mother, who lives 3 states away and had no involvement in any of this. Somehow, she got her number and called her, giving this sob story about how I was abandoning her poor pregnant daughter. My mom, bless her, shut it down hard. My son had a vasectomy years ago. Your daughter needs to find the actual father. Patricia hung up on her. Next, Melanie decided to go on a social media rampage, posting about deadbeat men who abandon pregnant women. She didn't name names, but it was painfully obvious who she meant. Some of our mutual friends started reaching out with concern. So, I did something a little petty but satisfying. I posted a photo of my vasectomy certificate, dated and signed, with the caption, "Some accusations require receipts." The post blew up. People who had heard about Veronica's pregnancy quickly did the math and connected the dots. The whispers turned into a storm, and soon, everyone in our circle knew the truth. That must have pushed Veronica over the edge, because she showed up at my workplace again, this time with her mother in tow. They started raising their voices in the lobby until security escorted them out. My boss was understanding, thankfully, but gave me a firm warning. This couldn't happen again. But then karma decided to clock in. Remember the married guy Veronica had hooked up with? His wife, Lauren, reached out to me through a mutual contact. Apparently, she'd had her suspicions ever since Garrett, her husband, came back from a conference looking sketchy. She'd been watching Veronica's social media posts and doing the math herself. When she connected the dots, she asked me for the full story. I gave her everything: timeline, Veronica's confession, ultrasound drama, all of it. Lauren was calm but focused. She said she'd take it from there. 2 days later, everything changed. Veronica sent me a long email from a new account, since I'd blocked all her numbers, apologizing for the confusion and saying she'd be handling the situation privately from now on. She asked if I could take down my social media post and move forward from this unfortunate misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. She tried to trap me into raising someone else's child and called it a misunderstanding. I didn't reply, but I did hear from mutual acquaintances what happened next. Lauren confronted Garrett with receipts. Turns out he'd lied about where he was, and this wasn't his first conference fling. She'd already been compiling evidence. The Veronica situation was the final straw. Lauren filed for divorce and named Veronica in the paperwork. Garrett, now facing financial ruin, decided to protect himself. Through his lawyer, he requested an official paternity test. Veronica tried to avoid it, but under legal pressure, she caved. The results came in. Garrett was the biological father. Just like that, all the noise from Veronica's family vanished. No more calls. No more messages. Melanie deleted her bitter posts. Patricia and Richard, who once begged me to step up, suddenly ghosted the situation the moment their daughter's life fell apart. Garrett's lawyer sent Veronica legal documents about custody and support. He wanted involvement, likely to reduce what he'd owe financially. Veronica now had to deal with him, his attorney, and his soon-to-be ex-wife for the next 18 years. This is the last update because, honestly, I'm over it. I want to close this chapter. The fallout has been massive. Garrett's divorce is public and ugly. Lauren didn't just leave. She burned it all down. She exposed Garrett's history of affairs, hired a forensic accountant, and found all kinds of shady spending. Veronica, trying to spin the mess into some redemption arc, started posting vague quotes about growth and healing. But the damage was done. Our mutual friends had seen her attempt to manipulate me, lie about paternity, and play victim. Her reputation took a brutal hit. Worse still, she'd been counting on me to support her and the baby financially. Stable job, steady income. She had it all lined up in her head. But Garrett? He's drowning in divorce costs and support payments. Not the fallback plan she imagined. Oh, and remember how I said she worked in PR? That industry isn't kind to scandal. Being named in Garrett's divorce paperwork hurt her professionally. She reportedly lost clients and had to step back from work. Patricia made one last attempt to reach me, this time through a cousin of mine. She asked if I could forgive Veronica and maybe still be part of the child's life as a family friend. I nearly laughed. A family friend to a child she tried to trick me into raising? The audacity. I told my cousin to make it clear. Any more contact, and I'd pursue legal action. The cherry on top? I ran into Nadia at the grocery store last week. She tried to duck out, but we ended up in the same checkout line. She muttered, "You could have handled it better." I asked, "Handled what better?" "Raising another man's child. You didn't have to humiliate her." She humiliated herself by lying about who the father was. The cashier overheard, and I swear her jaw dropped. Nadia abandoned her cart and stormed out. Veronica had to move back in with her parents. That fancy apartment she moved into after our breakup? She couldn't afford it without my supposed financial support. And those same parents who once called me a coward? Now they're footing the bill for their daughter and unborn grandchild. Garrett, meanwhile, is trying to present himself as a responsible father, likely for legal strategy. Veronica, who once dreamed of a stable family life, now has custody negotiations, a pending divorce lawsuit hovering around her, and a partner she can't even rely on. As for me, I'm good. Actually, better than good. My boss appreciated how I handled the entire mess professionally, despite the drama spilling into my workplace. The chaos brought me and my mom closer, too. She's been incredibly supportive. And the best part? I met someone new. Her name's Jenna. We clicked instantly at a friend's birthday party last week. When the topic of kids came up, I was honest about the vasectomy. Her response? "Thank God. I'm child-free too. We're taking it slow, but it feels healthy, honest, real." Looking back, the signs with Veronica were always there. The pressure, the manipulation, the guilt tactics, her false pregnancy claim was just the grand finale. And yeah, I probably should have told her about the vasectomy earlier. But compared to her trying to baby trap me with someone else's child, my silence feels like a tiny misstep in comparison. The last I heard, Veronica is trying to work out a co-parenting plan with Garrett, while simultaneously dealing with Lauren's legal team. The baby's due in about 3 months. That child will have a biological father, and Veronica will be reminded of her choices every time she coordinates custody schedules with the man whose marriage she helped destroy. As for me, I'm closing the book on this mess. That vasectomy, the one I got to prevent exactly this kind of disaster, worth every single penny. Sometimes the best revenge isn't some dramatic act. It's watching people suffer the natural consequences of their actions while you quietly move on with your life. Protected, prepared, and at peace. To anyone in a similar situation, document everything. Get a lawyer. Trust your instincts. And never, ever let guilt force you into owning someone else's mess.